You're maybe watching this video because you're trying to answer the question of how to set up your content mix when you're posting to social media or generally in your other kinds of marketing that you have available to you. And I want to explain the two kind of main factors that I think you need to consider and a kind of general discussion around this topic to help you get to that right kind of like positioning in terms of how much of each type of content to post. So firstly, just to be clear, there is the two kind of main camps. One is value add kind of content, so it's entertaining, it's educational, it's kind of creating value for the user. And then there's more of the kind of hard sell. So hard selling is much more of a, we do this service, we're going to create this kind of value, and that's going to get you leads or whatever it's going to be. So those are the two types of content, and there's lots of crossover between them. But ultimately, how you balance those two is really important to actually get results. Because if you, for example, a common thing which I see so often happen is companies will not know about this and not know the importance of the kind of more value add educational stuff. And so they just post endless kind of hard pitches. So their Instagram profile or their LinkedIn profile is just like, we will get you leads, we will do this result, like over and over again. And nobody wants to follow a LinkedIn company page that says that. Nobody wants to follow an Instagram page that just like spams hard sales. All people want to do on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, if you're doing these kind of B2B opportunities to get people to engage with you, they're using those networks because they want to find entertainment, education, etc., etc. Like those are the types of contents that do well in terms of actually having people enjoy them. And so really the common answers that as another kind of predisposition to my argument is Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, and others have said roughly 8 or 9 out of 10 posts should be very much just educational kind of giving, free advice, free information, free resources. Like this exact video, for example, I'm creating is purely just to try and like help you out. Like I'm not gonna be talking about products or services that I offer. It's literally just me trying to like give you some advice. And so this kind of giving is really what the large percentage of your kind of content should be. So the other two things to consider though, one of the other really big ones is, are you paying? So if you're paying, this is where you can throw everything I've just said out the window, because if you're paying, you are forcing your way into that person's life. So if you're, for example, pitching them something, if you, this does depend slightly on whether you're doing cold marketing or remarketing, because in cold, you're generally trying to get some initial attention. So maybe you do want to go a bit more back towards educational or informative. But with remarketing especially, and where you get the actual sales or the leads for your business, is ultimately coming from more of a hard pitch. But the reason why that works is because you're paying LinkedIn or Facebook or Google to show up. So like in Google, you pay to be shown on that particular like result, or on LinkedIn ads, you're just paying and then you pop up in their newsfeed and hopefully they click on you. So it doesn't really matter actually. There is no kind of natural, organic kind of spectrum of engagement that's considered in this situation. So essentially, you don't need to worry. You can go much more hard in terms of like pitching yourself as a business, going straight to the point, kind of like dropping to the like actual result that you're trying to get to. The other really big thing to consider is ultimately how can you basically cheat. So there's these two types of content: educational, informative, fun, entertaining, and then there's like hard pitch. But there is this in-between bit. So I think try a lot harder to just spend time in this area, and plus the purely educational, informative, etc., and actually almost forget this hard pitch. So the way I think of it more is like maybe 6 out of 10 posts would be the super fun, informative, educational, etc., etc. Build that kind of free value for people. And then maybe, let's say 3 of them are going to be this kind of halfway house, which is a little bit of a pitch, like hidden in there somehow. And then there's maybe just 1 out of 10, which is much more of a direct, we do this thing, we think that you're going to have a great impact from it, so you should do it. So what do I mean by those in-betweens? So some really great examples would be things like stories. So stories about the experiences your customers have had, but these are still valuable, you know, like you talk about a particular other business that has used your service and how they used it to gain this kind of massive benefit. Because in that story is real value for that particular potential customer. So it is still a value add, but you're also adding this kind of like this kind of like note within it to say, we are really good as well at what we do, and here's a result of that like impact that we can create. So thinking more about these kind of in-betweens, or it might be that you create a value add post, but in that value add post, you answer a huge part of their problem. So you already have helped them, but for them to really ultimately have their problem solved, they probably need to move towards using a professional organization and have people that have experience with it. So you can try very hard and answer lots of their problems, and that still actually leads them to actually using you for their larger overall kind of solution as a business. So these are the two main things I consider. One, is it paid or not? If it's paid, go nuts, do whatever you like, because you're paying for that privilege, and it doesn't matter if the engagement actually is low sometimes. Like, you can actually just do really well by just doing a really hard sell. That sometimes is the best copy, is like, we do this, you have this problem, we're gonna fix it, you know? That's it's simple as it gets. But if for the rest of the time, if you're not paying, I think thinking more about that in between, that kind of subtle pitch, the way that you make sure all of this value-added engagement stuff actually can subtly kind of interlink into what you actually do as a service or product, and use that to make sure that all of it really has an opportunity to deliver you leads. But last thing I'll say, I do think it's extremely underappreciated and undervalued how much goodness it does for a brand when they do stuff purely out of like goodwill, when you genuinely are just making content for the sake of like making your target market's lives better. It's like building up your brownie points, you know, as a business. I think that is really underappreciated because it's hard to track. It's like long-term relationship building and everything. But don't forget that too in this content mix when you're trying to set that up for yourself. So I hope this helped. I think it's a hard thing to get right. Generally, that basic golden rule of, 9 out of 10 posts should be value add, educational. Only 1 out of 10 should be more of a hard pitch. That's one of the most basic things to get right. So make sure you've got that. I have another video about hashtags in particular, which is really helpful. It's a similar topic to this. So if you've been playing with how to use hashtags, I'll link to that video here. And otherwise, I wish you luck trying to find success in all of your social media, whether it's organic or paid.